Hi, this is Alexander Ulyanov of Istanbul Kent University and Irem Nur Soycan of Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University. We could not come to meet you in person, but are very grateful to you for having us here remotely. The subject of our presentation is music by Ukrainian diaspora members as political messages in the host country. The political messaging potential of Ukrainian music is important as the country is soon entering its third year of full-scale war against Russian aggression. The host country in question is Turkey, where we are based. From the standpoint of this subject, Turkey is of interest due to its peculiar geopolitical and cultural position. In a nutshell, it supports the territorial integrity of Ukraine and cooperates with it militarily, yet does not join economic sanctions against Russia either. Culturally, the majority of Turkish population has very limited knowledge yet a mostly positive image of Ukraine. You can see the key trends and a diagram of main associations with Ukraine on this slide. Most importantly, they find it difficult to distinguish Ukraine from other post-Soviet countries and Russia in particular, yet are open to new knowledge about it. This reflects on the collective experience of the Ukrainian diaspora in Turkey, which for decades was largely intermingled with and seldom distinguished from a mostly Russian-speaking mixed post-Soviet diaspora. After the annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014, the Ukrainian diaspora in Turkey came to assert its own identity and focus on pro-Ukraine cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy means promoting a country's positive image or preferred narratives through cultural events. St. Patrick's Day is a brilliant example of it. In Ukraine, cultural diplomacy has been a part of the national cultural policy since 2016 and conceptually evolved from promoting the presence of Ukraine abroad to a cultural security approach. Cultural security means both promoting oneself and safeguarding against the risks of adversary use of cultural activities, such as misinformation and propaganda by one's enemies. Iram has had her own first-hand experience of Ukrainian diaspora's cultural diplomacy.
I've started my field research in April 2023 after learning that a part of the Ukrainian community in Istanbul was putting together demonstrations in a very busy street. After attending that one particular protest where they were calling Russia out on their war crimes in 5 different languages being English, German, Russian, Turkish, and Ukrainian, and following their Instagram page Istanbul Protest Odakule, I've instantly became interested in what kind of musical activities the community had in Istanbul, and thus my almost 2 year field research began. Because this particular group was taking part in various activities meant for collecting donations, I started to attend most of these. One of them, a series of events we will keep unnamed for ethical reasons, was meant to be the subject of this presentation. This event series was unique in its own way because municipal governors and mayors would show up to them and stay until the end, which is not a common occurrence. There are municipal and government heads of districts attending these events and presenting a speech and/or gifts to the organizers. Therefore, the event has some sort of political validation while strongly pro-Ukraine songs are being performed in a country that tends to stay close to neutral when it comes to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. These events also took place in various municipal buildings in Istanbul. Multiple Ukrainian musicians would come perform at these events not only from Istanbul or close by Turkish cities, but also from Ukraine itself. The purpose of the events, as stated in these venues, was to acquaint Turkish audience with Ukrainian culture. Therefore, there would be a lot of goods from Ukraine, a lot of home-cooked Ukrainian dishes, items from local Ukrainian businesses, and of course, Ukrainian music. In our conversations with the members of the Ukrainian community, I was wondering what their experiences were with the people of Turkey and quickly realized that they tend to be extremely disturbed by the fact that the locals confuse them with Russians and think Ukrainian and Russian culture were identical. This being one of the very understandable reasons why they put together events with Ukrainian music. Events seem to be getting more attention from the various Ukrainian groups in Istanbul rather than the local population. As a part of my field research for my dissertation, I attended these events and talked to the musicians present about my dissertation topic and if they would be willing to talk to me concerning their practices, all of which I had the chance to talk to, agree, and we exchanged contacts. Unfortunately, while we were preparing for this conference, we were denied a consent to use any names or information that we've received from these musicians, so we could not publish our research of the event, but we can share our reflections on conducting it. In our semi-constructed interviews with musicians that took place in these event series, we tried to figure out how music is used as a means of political messaging by the Ukrainian community in Turkey. Due to our fascination with their determination on putting together these events in Turkey, we asked a number of questions on why they think it is important to say something about Ukraine to the Turkish audience and how they communicate their message to them. I'd like to talk very briefly about how I was welcomed into my chosen field as a young ethnomusicology student, and Alexander will talk about how we got kicked out of it. During my field research, almost all Ukrainians that were meeting me for the first time approached me in Ukrainian. Some would be very surprised by the fact that I'm Turkish and would ask why I look like them. I caught some talking to each other saying, "Borders changed a lot, maybe she's even Ukrainian, but she doesn't know." They would share tickets and details for Ukrainian events, one of them being an Okeanelzi concert I attended, and this picture of me with the Ukrainian flag was taken there. So it being rather easy to blend in, I was in every sort of musical Ukrainian event that I can possibly attend, from the church assigned to the Ukrainian community in Istanbul to the fairs and concerts. Most of these events use either protest music or old songs that are very popular in Ukraine. Some have auctions with used army equipment turned into art pieces, shot glass holders of bullet casings, and Ukrainian flags signed by soldiers. When it comes to musicians, in our conversations, they refrain from saying anything political and stick only to talking about music. Although their repertoire can get very political, some musicians only sing songs about the war or old songs that are a symbol of Ukrainian sovereignty, like "Ой у лузі червона калина." So if we come to why and how we got kicked out of the field, it is best to leave the word to Alexander, but I first would like to add a couple of things. I still do believe that someone needs to conduct this type of research, especially in Turkish, because I've noticed a lot of misinformation when it comes to Ukraine, the war, and the stance of the Turkish government. While it is easier to put together events like these in Europe or North America, the Ukrainian community in Istanbul goes through a lot of hardship and still are dedicated to make it work. So while I have to change my dissertation topic, I think it is very much needed to do this. Just would like to say, not as words of discouragement, but as a friendly reminder and something that I've learned very early on in my career through this experience, that it's important to keep in mind not every research has a happy ending, and while conducting a research, things might not go as planned all the time.
It all went very well until one of the interviewees directly asked me about my background. As soon as I told them that I happened to be born with a Russian passport, they refused to go any further. All the previously questioned participants followed the suit within literal minutes and revoked their consent for us to use what they said in this presentation. Yet we can't speak of this refusal itself, as we believe it has a significance of its own. Just like the crossed-out facelessness of these Motenko dolls you can see on this slide makes them one of the most recognizable Ukrainian symbols. This quote from a recent Ukrainian war diary may give us a key to understanding that. The point here is how framing and contextualizing a message, regardless of the meaning or intent behind it, can fit into carry-over preconceptions and infringe on the narrative autonomy of the one speaking. The non-consensual association of Ukraine with Russia has lasted way too long and was way too painful. So mere circumstantial association can lead to misperceived convergence, as it was the case with the Ukrainian diaspora in Turkey before 2014. One might find this strict negation emotion-driven or extreme, but at the very least, it merits a try to understand.